G'day, Fiddle and Phil here again with lesson 2. Now I did promise you last lesson that we would learn about using the bow, and I'm going to also change a little bit the way that we hold the violin. Now first of all, let's look at the bow hold. We'll assume that I've already tuned my violin. Okay, the bow, we can tighten it up, and I'll just show you that. When we finish using the bow, we loosen it by turning that counterclockwise or back towards us. See how the hair of the bow's become quite sort of floppy? So when we turn it, I don't have a pencil here, I should have, but when we tighten the bow up, a lot of people make this mistake, a lot of my students have made this mistake, so I'm very careful to show you this, that the bow should still be curved a bit this way. And the way to test that is if you get a normal sized pen or pencil and you run it right through here, it should only just pass through the narrowest part. And that's how you tell that your bow is the right tension. Okay, that'll do for the moment. Now, if you're a little person and you've got a little violin, I like to tell my very young students, about 7, 8 years old or even younger, that the best thing for them is to put their thumb underneath the frog, if that's more comfortable for them with smaller hands. Funnily enough, a little bit easier. Then we just put, now just assume that you might be a more grown-up person learning how to play the violin, because that's a good thing to do. Put the thumb right next to this black thing here we call the frog. Okay, I'll hold it around here like this. That's the beauty of video, you can see all angles. Put your thumb there, just put your fingers across there, not scrunched up like that, not spread out like that, and then you turn the wrist a little bit this way. Now look at the action. You can do this just using your left hand with our air violin here. We're going to play a bit of air violin, and we move the bow up and down, and we see how the wrist and the elbow work, and the bow is straight. If we are really stiff in the elbow or the wrist, this kind of thing happens. You can imagine if I had my violin there, that would be just dreadful. It would go across all the strings, we'd have no control at all. Here's a way to think of it. If you had a piece of paper here in your hand, and we scrunched it up and we threw it down, that's how the wrist, the action of the wrist is like that as we go down bow. Okay, that's called a down bow. We go from the heel down to the point. Okay, now with the up bow, pretend like those puppets that you might have seen as a kid. With those puppets, where the marionettes, where the strings attached here and the strings attached to the wrist, so that's the part that comes up first of all, nearly touches your nose. Okay, so pull it up and there it is. Let it go down and just practice doing that a few times. Let's try that with the violin. Got my trusty old violin here again, and just practice moving that up and down a few times. Maybe even go back to the first lesson, to the introduction to the violin or the sonata on A. And I'll just mention here too that there are a few pieces that are in the Fiddle and Phil Strings Method book that are not included in these video lessons. You actually have to purchase the hard copy to get the complete method, but a lot of the files and the pieces are included. And this one, you'll have to go to our website and download or go to our online store actually and purchase the files. And it's quite cheap, and you can basically, my understanding is that you can do it from anywhere in the world or within Australia, and you don't have to pay postage. And I think the download size for this lesson will be, or at least under 5 megabytes, with PDFs and MP3s of the backing tracks. So here we go. You can practice doing that yourself in your own time using the bow, but just... And I mentioned a couple of other little things about using the bow here. There's 3 things we can do with the bow, I tell my students. There's how much bow we use. So we can have short, sharp little bows. Okay, and you know, when we want to play something quite loud and forceful, we can use short bows but press quite hard. Okay, so we can use the bow like that. Now, we can control how much bow we use, we can control how quickly we move the bow, and we can control how hard we press in the bow. So why don't you experiment with those things? At the moment, we're going to now use our newfound knowledge to play some jazz, the beginner string blues, which you'll find in the downloaded files. But even without the music, I'm going to play the open strings part first of all. Okay, so here's the counting. Now, there are there's a melody part there as well, so that if you are a more experienced player watching this, you can play the melody part or make things up. Now, I've stopped it there. I think it plays 3 times through on the MP3 file. That's just playing the open strings of D, G and A, as indicated in the PDF file for beginner string blues. Okay, let's have a bit of fun. We're going to improvise. That means make up our own thing. Now, if you have someone you're learning with, another person playing the violin, one of you can make up a rhythm and the other person can play it back. Now, if you make up any rhythm at all you like on the open D string, because this is a blues in D, it sounds pretty good. Alright, and the other person can echo that back. Now, there's only one of me, so I'll just demonstrate that a little bit, just making up any rhythm I like on the D string, and it sounds pretty good. I've got some year 3s in some schools where I teach 30 to 50 violinists in year 2 or 3 all at the same time, 6 and 7 year olds, and they just love it when I play a bar of rhythm and they have to, all 50 of them or 30 of them depending on which class I've got, all playing that back with the backing track turned up nice and loud, and they'll do that all day. It's great fun. Sometimes I get 1 or 2 of them out the front and they make up rhythms with the blues in D, and they're improvising. And then when we learn some fingers in the left hand, we could add, say, something like this. Okay, so just using the first few notes of the scale once we've learned those fingers, but don't try that just yet.